Hello, this is Justin Horvath with your Leavenworth housing market update for the month of October. And the biggest headline this month is not the fall foliage, it's the major shift in market leverage. So whether you're considering selling your mountain retreat or finally buying that getaway cabin, you need to understand one thing. The power dynamics have fundamentally changed. So today, I'm going to break down 4 data points that help you see why buyers have had the best selection and negotiating power right now than we've seen in over 3 years, and what sellers need to do in order to command their very own closings. Okay, so the first data point we're going to look at is essentially your overall selection, right? And specifically, we're going to look at the total homes for sale, and then we'll jump to the total months of inventory available. So as we look at, here in September, we're sitting at 213, which is a slight dip from what we saw in August at 226. However, this is still 10% higher than anything we've seen in the last 3 years. I mean, you can see the typical seasonal peak is August, you got 151, 170, 174, and then this year at 226. So this is a huge story for just overall selection that's available in the market right now. Next, we'll look at the total amount of months of supply. So, this is essentially if we didn't list any new properties, how long would it take us to sell everything that we have now? And over 6 months is really a buyer favored market. Under 6 months is sellers, 6 months is kind of a balanced, right? So here we again see, a little bit of a dip in September, 14.2 from 14.6 and 14.9 in July. However, it's a stark contrast to what we've seen in the last 18, 24 months and beyond. You do see that this supply has kind of built up year over year during the peak seasons, but, 11.13 months last year, up to almost 15 this year is a huge difference. So sellers, here's your main takeaway is your competition remains pretty thick and buyers have the ability to be choosy. And if your property isn't priced well and staged flawlessly, you're simply going to just sit on the sidelines. Now, buyers, your takeaway is this is your opportunity. It's right now. It's not winter. It's not spring. You have the widest selection of properties to look at and zero pressure to settle. So this is a unique moment in time for you to find that perfect retreat, getaway cabin, whatever it might be, and get it at terms that make sense. Okay, so the next data point we're going to look at is average sales price. And as you can see, there's a lot of volatility in this line, month to month. And this is pretty normal for our area. And the main reason is in the area of Leavenworth, this actually includes Peshasta and, Lake Wenatchee Plain as well. But, we're not seeing a huge amount of houses sold. This isn't like Seattle where you're in the hundreds, if not more than that, sold throughout a given period of time. So, it doesn't take much for us to swing an average price point one direction or the other. But for the sake of looking at the month to month, you can see September, we're sitting at 562,000, which is down from the 2 months previous to that. August, you're 625, you're up at 925 in July. Now, let's take a little bit more data. Let's get a more concrete number. And so the way that we typically are going to do that is we're going to take a 12-month rolling average, and we'll just look at it year by year here. So you can see the last 12 months, our average price point has been about $705, almost $706,000, whereas the 12 months prior to that, it was about 720 almost. So you're almost 2% down in overall pricing from the previous 12 months. And this is a clear cooling trend. So sellers, your takeaway here, right, is that a pricing strategy based on last summer's peak is a recipe for failure. And you got to be forward looking. You got to be realistic when it comes to your initial price to avoid possible price reductions that can be costly, negotiations on inspection or other parts of your contract that can be costly. Realistic price up front is what's going to help you secure a sale quickly. Now, buyers, your takeaway is price stability is returning. And you can see, again, when we looked at the month to month, it's at the lowest point it's been in a while. So, now versus just a month or two ago, you're going to be buying more property with your dollar, right? Or more acreage with your dollar than just a couple months ago. So you might be able to aim a little bit higher in your budget and get more bang for your buck. All right. So the third data point we're going to look at is days on market. So how many days is a property listed before it accepts a contract and goes independent? Now, good news is we've seen a slight decrease, right? We're at 59 days coming into September versus 64, 68 the months before. Again, as I mentioned in the last data point, you're going to see a lot of volatility here just based on the low numbers that these averages are being found on. So again, let's go ahead and let's take a 12-month look at what the last 12 months have been at. And you'll see the average is 85 days until it took property to get under contract, which is 27% higher than we saw the 2 years prior to that. So, sellers, here's your takeaway. If your home sells quickly, so under 60 days, under 70 days, right? You nailed pricing, you nailed your presentation. Now, if you're sitting above the 85-day average, you're reinforcing the buyer's belief that the home has some type of flaw, whether it's price, condition, location, there's something there. Now, buyers, your takeaway here is market speed's manageable, right? We don't have to get out in the first couple days, get an offer out in the first 24 hours to make something happen. This gives you plenty of time to do thorough due diligence. So we can add in strong inspections. We can potentially negotiate repairs if needed. The pressure to waive contingencies is completely, if not largely, gone. So this significantly de-risks your purchase, which is a good thing. Okay, so our fourth data point and final data point is going to be the percentage of the list price received. So it's listed at what price did the seller and buyer come to agreement on? And so this is actually the most dramatic shift we're going to see in all the data points. You can see September, we actually dropped all the way to 90.2% of list price. So you got to think, right? On a $700,000 home, you're looking at, over $65,000 worth of savings there. And that's pretty significant. Now, again, volatility in the month-to-month numbers. So let's just really quick kind of grab a 12-month number, take a look at what we're seeing. And this has been pretty true across the board. This is what I tell people constantly, especially on the buying side, is, 5% on average is pretty much what we see when you get a list price versus what the house ends up going to contract. So again, sellers, here's your takeaway. This market, and it hasn't been this way for a while, but we're not at full price offers or bidding wars. This isn't 2021 anymore. So expect and budget for some negotiation, right? You should be able to be act motivated and act flexible. So preempt this by pricing your sharper from the start and avoid a prolonged, draining negotiation process. Buyers, here's your takeaway. The statistic right here is your biggest negotiation tool. It's proof that sellers are willing to negotiate aggressively. So this kind of gives you a little bit more leverage to negotiate price, closing costs, repairs. You're in the driver's seat. Okay, so final takeaway, final thoughts. In short, the Leavenworth market has completely transitioned, especially from 2021, 2022, and sellers need to be realistic and meticulous. Buyers have an unprecedented opportunity in terms of selection and leverage. So sellers, in order to succeed, you've got to focus on two things: pricing for the current reality, and then perfectly staging the property to reflect the unique outdoor lifestyle, right? The privacy, the views, the recreational access that our buyers demand. Now, buyers, don't wait for winter. Don't wait for spring, right? You need to act on the current inventory and leverage that you have today. So let's build a strategy, target, let's say, the high quality properties that you desire, and really focus on things that have been on the market for 60, 70 plus days, so we can go secure a significant negotiation in your favor. Now, sellers, final thought: if you want a data-driven valuation that reflects the new reality we're in today, let's talk. Buyers, if you're ready to take advantage of this inventory and the leverage you have at hand, let's schedule a call. Let's lock in your mountain retreat before the spring demand returns and you're competing with everybody. That's it. That's what the Leavenworth housing market looks like as of October 2025. So if there's any of those points that resonated really well with you, again, reach out to me, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side. I'd love to help you out. And I'm sure my contact information is somewhere in a little description. Give me a call, shoot me a text, shoot me an email, whatever's convenient for you. And let's figure this out. Let's figure out what your unique situation looks like and what works best for you.